Okay, we're with Forrest Rhodes, and we are at the Winfield VA Center, and we're going to talk today to Ernest about his World War II experiences. So, Ernest, where were you born?
Johnstown, Pennsylvania,
Wow.
in 1923. I will be 100 July 12th.
So, how'd you get to Kansas?
My two boys brought me here.
They did. Okay. So, you grew up in Johnston, Pennsylvania.
Johnstown.
Johnstown, excuse me. And so, did you have brothers and sisters?
I have four sisters and two brothers.
Okay, and there's seven of you. And what did your parents do for a living?
My dad was a milkman for 46 years. A milkman.
Yes, wow.
And my mother was a home person.
And
My first sister cleaned houses. My brother was a doctor of psychology. My sister's the head of Social Security in Maryland. My next sister's husband was a roll turner and she didn't work. I was in computers for 40 years.
You were a what?
I was in computers.
Computers?
For 40 years.
Wow, that's great.
I was also a soloist for 40 years, a singer. I sang high tenor.
So where did you sing? In Pennsylvania?
In Johnstown, Pleasant Hill, Church of the Brethren, up on Pleasant Hill.
Oh my God.
I sang in 10 churches or more.
So how did you get into the service? Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and I was sent to the service center somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I was sent from there to Denver, Colorado. From Denver, Colorado, I was sent to Ohio. I was in Ohio about 6 weeks. I was in Denver about, I'll say, 3 months. Then I was sent to, I took my basic training in Denver. Then I was sent to Ohio about 6 weeks or more. They gave me a test and I was interviewed. So they sent me to Warner Robins, Georgia. I was down in Warner Robins, Georgia in the computer department for 2 years.
Okay.
Then I volunteered for Iraq. There were 6 of us volunteered for Iraq. So they sent us to Salt Lake City, Utah. So we did Salt Lake City, Utah, I imagine about maybe 4 or 5, 6 weeks, 6 months. So while we were there, we did guard duty. They sent me because I was born on a 30-acre pear farm in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. They sent me to one of the dumps about 14 miles from camp because everybody else was scared. Then they sent me from there we got on the bus to go to Iraq. And the colonel go on and said, if the boys have more than 24, we had all our shots, all our interviews, and everything all ready to go to Iraq. They said if you have more than 24 months in the States, they're not allowed to go. So we all got off but one boy, one friend of mine.
And he had to go?
Yeah, he had to go to Iraq.
So were you in the Army Air Force?
Air Force.
Okay.
So then they sent us some
So you had to stay in Utah.
We were in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent us from Utah back to Denver, Colorado. From Denver, Colorado, we took a test and they sent me to Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs?
That's where Utah, where the Pikes Peak is, where the Garden of Gods, Cave of the Winds, Seven Falls, Royal Gorge, I saw them all.
That's pretty out there.
Yeah. So
what was your job when you got to Colorado Springs in the Army or Air Force?
I was in computers the whole time.
Computers the whole time. Okay.
We did all the overseas supplies.
Okay.
But that's what I did in Georgia. We did all the overseas supplies.
Okay. So how long were you in the service?
3 years.
3 years. Do you know when you went in? Do you know what year it was? When you were drafted? How old were you?
About 43.
43?
1949.
And so then you got out probably 46?
I got out in 46. And from there, I was hired by, before I went to service, I was hired by Bethlehem Steel. I was hired as a mail boy because that's all they had. I wanted to be a machinist. So they put me in mail boy, and I changed the whole mailing system. So they put me as a timekeeper. But timekeeper, I went to supply. So I really did all the supplies in perfect order.
And so then,
while I was there, I cleaned all the two of the big head bosses' place where they store stuff. I rearranged the whole thing, and they were so impressed. So they sent me into supply. I went from timekeeper to supply. Supply, I used to have a little time to waste every once in a while. So I used to go up and stand by the computer room. And I kept watching the computer room. So a head man came in from New York. He said to Bob, I need a man to help me for a week. He said, there's one, he's not doing nothing. So I said, oh, he said, okay. So I went to work with him for a whole week on the computers. He was doing a special job. So at the end of the 2 weeks, he said to my boss, if you don't hire that guy, you're crazy. So my boss hired me. I walked around the computer room for about a week. So then the boss said, well, you did such a good job, he's putting me on payroll.
Oh my gosh.
Just in payroll in a room. I did payroll then, so then I did, and then I was drafted. So after I was drafted.
And then you learned a lot more about computers, it sounds
so
like.
Then I was drafted about 6 weeks. I was in computers about 6 or 8 weeks.
Before you got drafted.
Maybe a couple months. And so then I was drafted, and that's where I got into computers in the Army.
Well, that was great. And so then when you got out, you continued in computers.
So when I got out, I did payroll for 19 and a half years. They moved out of town and I would go. The Bethlehem Steel called me the next week, hired me back. I said, I can't come till I train a new man. Then I went back to work again. They put me on payroll. So I walked across. I said, "Where does the papers come from that you gave me?" Every day there was papers laying on my desk. So I said, "Where do the papers come from?" Nobody seemed to know. I said, "Go across the hall to the payroll department and ask them." So I went across the room to the payroll department. I said, who handles this paper? And the guy said, "I do." I said, "Where does this paper come from?" "Hell, I don't know." I said, "You knew." "No, I've been here 30 years. I said, "And you don't know where it comes from after 30 years?" So he goes back to the head boss and tells him I hurt his feelings by saying that. So the boss said the next day, "I'm going to switch you on to midnight." So he said, put me on midnight. So the next morning I come off at midnight. I went to see the head boss, and I said, "That's my turn. I'm staying on midnight." I worked on midnight shifts on production for 20 years. And later I was promoted to head of the department. So I was in charge of 31 people. We all did production, and I had one mail boy also. And I had 23 girls in the key funds department, and 9 principal people, and one mail boy. So I worked with 9 people over the computer room. We did all the productions for 16,000 people for 20 years.
That is amazing.
So the fact that I could go home in the morning at 8 o'clock, I would make toys till 5 o'clock every night, and then for most of the time, then I'd go to bed. Or I did all the water meters in the township on the side for 800 people for 3 years till they changed the system. Took it off our business.
So do you have any stories when you were in the service?
What?
Any stories about when you were in the service? Anything while you were?
I worked with 69 fellas.
Worked with 69 fellas. Mm-hmm. And did you make some friends?
But the only few stories I had was I saw one girl come in one night and she was beautiful. Not beautiful, she was gorgeous. So I said to my buddy who I was working with, "I saw a girl come in this morning. She works across the hall." "Boy," I said, "she is gorgeous. Will you introduce me to her?" "Oh, I know who she is." He walks across the hall and said, "Forrest wants to meet you." So he brings her back over. And he said, "This is Forrest Rhodes." And I said, "Nice to know you." She introduced herself and her name. And I didn't know what the name was. He said, she said, "Forrest, I want to introduce you to my wife." So that happened to me twice. So.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
I had another boy same way, and I came across the hall. The new girl, another girl come in. She was just as pretty as that one was. So he went over, brought her over here, and told him it was his wife. So,
oh my gosh!
So I dated a teletype operator from Minnesota. There were about 10 girls from Minnesota to learn how to do key punching. And so I dated one of the girls from key punch. She was a key punch operator and a teletype operator.
Well, do you remember Eisenhower? Do you remember him as General Eisenhower?
Yes.
Did you ever meet him?
No, I did not.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts about General Eisenhower or President Eisenhower?
What?
Do you have anything you'd like to share? What did you think of
I thought he was a great president.
Yeah.
I thought he was a great president. And well, you figure when you're 100 years old, I met more than one.
Yeah, yeah.
I met about 4 or 5.
Well, I want to thank you so much for talking to me today, and thank you for your service. in World War II.
Okay.